Hey, what's going on guys? Acer and John here, and today I thought we'd go over a brief guide on how to do Guardian games, as well as my thoughts. Before we jump into it, I asked if you want to keep up to date on all Destiny 2 news, information, leaks, tutorials, and more. Hey, go and subscribe to my channel. Otherwise, let's jump into it. So starting off the guide, let's go ahead and talk about what the whole point of this event is. It's a competition between the different classes. The event mainly revolves around the whole collecting laurels mechanic, which if you don't know, by equipping the Guardian Games class item that you get from both Zavala and Eva Levante, basically they allow you to create these things called laurels. You then use the laurels to buy contender cards, which depending on the card allows you to do an objective in a certain activity, which will award you a medal, and then you take these medals back to the tower, in which you can dunk them for not only loot, but also points for your team. It's also important to note that there's 4 different medal types, that being bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. Bronze is awarded from Strike, Crucible, and Gambit completions, and gives you 1 point towards your team. Silver medals come from the Nightfalls, Trials of Osiris, as well as Survival Competitive Playlist completions. And silver medals end up awarding 2 points towards your team. Next up, the gold medals are awarded via completing Strike, Crucible, or Gambit contender cards, and they award 5 points for your team. And lastly, with the platinum medals, they come from completing Trials of Osiris and Nightfall contender cards, and they award 15 points for your team. Now do keep in mind you can only have 1 contender card active at a time, and apparently, at least from my experience, it seems like the Nightfall contender cards are actually the easiest ones to complete, which is kind of funny considering they award the highest payout essentially. Now, one last mechanic for this event, there's this thing called the Daily Focus, which makes it so you get bonus laurels from either Strike, Crucible, and Gambit for the rest of that day. If you want to check what the Daily Focus is, you can either check the milestone tabs in the map/destination screen, or you can head over to your medal case, and it will tell you what the Daily Focus is. Another thing is, with the medal case, if you get medals while you're full on a certain type of medal, you are just going to straight up lose that medal. So make sure you're depositing those medals as soon as you can. Otherwise, you will lose out on medals. Now, when it comes to getting laurels fast, and a lot of them, I recommend going to the Thrall Way, Shattered Throne area, where all the Shadow Thrall are spawning in. If you kill them with abilities in there, it will easily make tons of laurels. Also, with this event, if you complete the first 2 quests that you get from Eva Levante, you'll get a 3rd quest for the Heir Apparent if you do not have the Heir Apparent exotic machine gun. And once you've acquired the Heir Apparent exotic machine gun, you will be able to acquire its Catalyst quest from randomly depositing medals. In the end, when this event ends, the winner will have a golden statue representing their class placed up in the tower somewhere, as well as, depending on where your class finished, your Guardian Games class item will lock to that color for the rest of the year. Now that pretty much covers everything, so let's go and talk about my thoughts on the event. So I'll just start off by saying it's a step up from last year. However, that's not saying much considering the bar was literally rolling around on the floor because of how low it was. I do give props to Bungie for incorporating the laurel mechanic better this year. I think that was one of my main complaints last year, was I just wasn't happy with the fact that they had this whole laurel system and it seemed pretty neat, but they didn't really use it at all. Last year you used the laurels to buy the exotic ghost, I think, and then that was it. Another thing I'm glad they did is they tuned down how grindy the event was. Last year, the event was super grindy with very minimal rewards. Was not a fun experience. I also appreciate them making the objectives more open, at least on the contender cards this year. They're not as frustrating and long objectives. They're simple, to the point. Probably going to be an unpopular opinion, but I don't think the Nightfall card should be that easy considering it's the highest tier of points, and yet you could do it in 1 Nightfall. One thing I do dislike about this event is how the medal case was handled. It's extremely limited. On top of that, I don't like the fact that we are limited to 1 contender card at a time. I feel like I should be able to buy as many as I want. But yeah, it's pretty annoying to have to, at least when doing the Nightfall contender cards, I have to go back to the tower after every single Nightfall completion, and that's pretty annoying. But yeah, other than those couple issues, maybe if there's a little bit more loot incentive with this event, maybe there's some sort of unique weapon tied to it, like Festival of the Lost or the Dawning, maybe I'd put this as a pretty good event. But pretty much other than the things I listed that I dislike about this event currently, I think it's a pretty good event. It's just those little itty things like no super exclusive loot reward, like a unique legendary weapon, or not being able to stack contender cards, pretty much holds this event back. I will say one last criticism I have with this event is that it does mainly play around the class-specific strike playlist. It's supposed to be like your go-to place for laurels, and unfortunately it's just not the most effective way to get laurels. I would like to incentivize people to play that strike playlist. Maybe they should make increased laurel drops from there specifically. But other than those small things, I would put this as like a good B-tier seasonal event. But I think it could move up into the A tier if it had the things I felt like it was either missing or holding it back. Anyways, that was my thoughts. That was also my guide. This was Ace Trainer John, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.